Okay, I think we're on and rolling. We're going to do a little update on Miss Rarely Wrong today. And I think today is going to the right day. So what we've been working on, which she's sort of ready to graduate at the 3-month mark. And then because of the storms, the weather, life in general, we're now at the 17th of October. So she's had about 3.5 months now of just repeating this work of walking on the lunge line. And in that time, she settled down quite a bit. We had lots of highs and lows. Her record for sort of bolting, doing canter and fast trot and high anxiety is about 20 minutes. So, and that hasn't happened since maybe the first month of working on this. What I'm looking for is that her circle, I'm looking for efficiency of motion, for her to discover a couple of things in this exercise. So it's just lunging at the walk, and that lengthening of the neck is the number one thing I was really hoping for during the walk. As you can see, that's now coming sooner, but it's not super consistent. So where I liked every horse to kind of get an A+ on whatever exercise we're working on, I would kind of at the 3-month mark would give Rarely about a C. She has like a passing grade on this exercise. We can move on to doing some more stuff, but that distraction, her tendency to still be highly distracted, make one side of the circle really tight, and then pull out on the other side of the circle, kind of speeding up her walk, her neck shortening, lengthening, her obsession with where the other horses are still. All of that is why she's still not getting an A+ on this exercise. So, but she's no longer having high spikes of anxiety, busting into canter and trot, and really pulling hard on the lunge line. So when we started, I thought after 3 months of working on all of her basic handling skills, which is all pretty much at the halt and a little bit of controlled walk, it took her about 3 months to really get an A+ on everything from catching to trailer loading. And when we started the lunging, what I realized is her anxiety is creating a lot of muscular tension, and her muscular tension then feeds the anxiety. And at a certain distance, where she's pretty good now if she has support and guidance from the person, she's much happier in the exercises that offer more guidance and less happy when she has to make more decisions on her own. So this exercise was really the point of staying on it as long as I did, was for her to learn that when her emotions do spike up, that she can bring them back down, that she can find her way back into calmness after she has a spook or a worry or a distraction. And to really master this exercise of walking on the lunge line, I would like to see that she's more focused and less of that, less distraction, less looking around, more sort of just quietly focused on her job of walking, which means she's considering more how she feels internally. As soon as they're distracted or she's shortening her neck, she's less worried about how she feels internally, and she's more, checking out the environment, make sure she's safe. And so this is very mild compared to where we started. And so I'm pretty happy with it. Like for her to come out, and last night we had our first cold front. So usually the horses are pretty frisky on the first chilly day of the season. We don't really have seasons in Florida. It sort of just goes hot, 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 cold front. Hot, 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 cold front. So we went from 90 degrees, hot and humid, lots of rain with the past, Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton that sort of affected us. into 50 degrees overnight. And then today is just beautiful. It must be in the mid 70s. I haven't checked, but it's gorgeous, a little bit breezy. But usually on our first cool day of the fall, the horses are a little bit more wound up, and I'm anxious to work on trot and canter with everybody again. That's always after the first cold front. We get to start our work on trot and canter over the whole winter. Because right before we get our first cold front, the horses are already growing their winter coats because the light is changing, but it's still wicked hot and humid, and that's when they're most prone to heat stress or colic. So they either quit sweating, or that sort of hot to cold weather and the barometric pressure changes that come with these hurricanes, we call that colic weather. So we made it through without any big illnesses or disruptions. And for her to just start off quietly and even really lengthening her neck straight away is fantastic. I may just sort of check her out today if she continues to do this well for 10 minutes to the left. We might just check out 10 minutes to the right. And usually the left is her harder direction. So if she's going to have a hard day, if she's going to spike back into that anxiety at all, it's almost always when she's tracking left instead of right. So this is particularly good. Maybe I won't change direction. For some reason I had intended to send her to the right and I sent her to the left. Oh well. Either way, all I want to see is that first of all, the energy has moved from extreme anxiety to moderate to mild. So if I see any anxiety now, it's very mild, and most of it is pretty calm energy. I'd love to see her slow down a tad more, lengthen her neck, maybe even stay in the posture of long and low, maybe make her circle a little bit rounder and less egg-shaped. Because all of those, if she makes those choices, what that's telling me is she's considering her physical comfort. And if she's considering her physical comfort, she's going to make a rounder circle because it's more efficient. She's going to have a slower, more rhythmic speed because it feels better. She's going to lengthen her neck because that feels better and it's a more efficient way to move. And all of those physical choices or performance choices tell me also that she feels entirely safe. And so the little bit of distraction she still has is not nearly what it was when we started. And even if she looks away, she's not pulling all the way to the end of the lunge line and sort of straining on it. So even today, I would say C+, maybe even a B, even better because we had to go a little longer than the 3 months we had planned. And this is pretty darn good. She's getting close to really mastering this exercise, or I should say learning the lessons of this particular exercise. And because it's an unsupported exercise, the whole purpose of it is for her to have the time and the space with me just motivating her to go one direction, not slowing her down if she goes faster, but maybe giving a correction if she halts. So it's just a long, relaxed walk. And because it's unsupported, because the very point of it is for her to make discoveries towards feeling safer in her own skin, and maybe even improving her balance a little by finding more efficient movement at the walk, it takes time and lots of trial and error. There were good days and bad days, and what I'm looking for is a consistent change of choice. That when she comes out here, she just relaxes and walks and thinks about what she's feeling on the inside rather than worrying about everything that's going on the outside. Yeah, this is looking more like a B plus to me. So she started off really well. And that's what moved her from what we would say an F grade up to a C, which is just passing, is even on hard days or days she was still spiking up and down, it just wasn't, the energy and the amount of force just wasn't as intense. It just wasn't the same amount, right? And that, her kind of getting it, moving closer to calmness, moving closer to a round circle, lengthening her neck a little bit. Or if she gets upset, she's not pulling as hard, she's not trotting as long, or she's not going into canter and really losing the plot. So that's what sort of moved her from an F to a C, which tells me, okay, we've given this a nice long amount of time. I've seen her learn and gain the benefits of the exercise, but we can start adding in some other challenges. And this is even better. This is better today than I expected. And so she's not far away from mastering this exercise. So my plan for her is to start working on a little bit of hand walking, see how she responds to go, whoa, left and right direction, sort of simulating what we would do if I were riding, and see if she's willing to follow without resistance or reactiveness. That's going to be the next thing we start working on. But I can still throw in days of the week where we just keep repeating this exercise. So I can kind of start mixing in a new exercise while I'm still having her work through the last of this other exercise that she's just about mastered. And to me, she's a great example that even I expected it not to take quite this long on the lunge line because we had done 3 months of basic handling. She was trusting me. She was doing great. She got an A+ on everything in basic handling. And yet we never know when the challenge is going to come up, but we certainly recognize it when the horse tells us something is not easy for them. And just being able to walk around a lunge line, relax, and stay focused without guidance was not easy for Rarely Wrong. Right? Surprisingly not easy for Rarely Wrong. And so even though the temperature came down quite a bit, if I give her the time she needs, all horses will learn and master it given enough time. Kind of surprised me that this is the result at 3.5 months of just doing this exercise, probably 3 to 5 times a week. So we've been working on it. And like I said, there's been bad days, good days. Overall, session by session, I'm seeing more consistency with what I want to see and less time, as well as sort of less dramatic hard days or things I don't want to see her choose to do. But I feel like this is a good place. This is a very good place to maybe do this with her at least once a week, maybe a couple times a week, while we start moving into some other challenges and some different groundwork exercises. So even when she halts, I kind of give her a minute before I ask her to move forward again. Obviously, I don't need to use a whip, because if she started halting all the time to the point I needed a whip, that would be a full counterbalance and a great new problem to have. So far, I don't have that problem. But the relaxing, the licking and chewing, the fact that she's not as intensely distracted and she's more often sort of focused on the task at hand. Or like that, when she is distracted, it's not escalating the energy. She's looking without overreacting. That's a huge change in the right direction, which tells me she's learning to manage herself. That's really the point of this exercise. can you just manage yourself? If you have a wobble, if you have a minute and you get worried or fearful or anxious or have to go a little fast, can you bring yourself back down, right? Can you start to make self-corrections towards calmer energy, mentally focused on the task at hand, and even show some physical signs of being a more efficient mover? Not expecting balance, but efficiency would be sort of the first step, that she is improving her balance a little bit because she's choosing a more efficient path of travel. She's choosing a more efficient rhythm. She's choosing a more efficient posture that I know is more comfortable. And we're right on the brink of that. I would say it's starting to kind of take shape. It's not solid, but the calmness is getting pretty solid. So that's what gives her a C or a B, but not yet quite an A+ on this exercise. So we'll just do a few more minutes, but these first 15 minutes, right, especially the morning, or not the morning anymore, it's afternoon after our first cold front last night, which was pretty chilly for us, chilly this morning, and that usually riles all the horses up a little bit. They're feeling pretty frisky right after our first cold front. So for her to stay calm today I'm pretty happy with that, right? And again, she may still kind of go up and down a little bit, but the highs are not as high, and she's often closer to being calm, focused, and efficient than not. And I have no time frame on how long any particular exercise is going to take for any particular horse. She sort of sailed through most of the basic handling. We had a little sticky point on needles and farrier and trailer loading. Trailer loading probably took the longest. But she really got an A+ on everything in the end, and overall, the entire basic handling segment of training took 3 months. So now that we're into the groundwork portion of training, which is where we're going to solidify the learning frame of mind in motion and start working on aspects of physical balance like internal straightness, impulsion, eventually self-carriage, we're just going to go through all the different groundwork exercises. And this first one that I chose was kind of a doozy and has taken a very long time, 3.5 months, just to kind of get a passing grade from a failing grade. But there may be other exercises that we do 2 or 3 sessions and she gets an A+ and we move on. So every horse is a little different. And the tasks, each task that I have outlined in basic handling and groundwork challenges the balance in the mind and the body in a slightly different way. And so as we work our way through, there are certain tasks that are just super easy, if that's for any particular horse, and then other tasks are really difficult. And I never really know where the horse is going to find it easy or where they find it difficult. Sometimes it surprises me. Sometimes I have kind of an idea and I'm right. Sometimes I have kind of an idea and I'm dead wrong. And the horse makes a liar out of me. So it just so happened this first groundwork exercise that I picked for rarely, lunging at the walk, has taken quite a long time for her to get decent at. Still hasn't mastered it yet. So we're going to keep it in our repertoire of training, but it's not going to be the only thing we work on anymore. We're going to start mixing in some other stuff and see how she does. So that's about 20 minutes. And as you can see, even when she's distracted, she's self-correcting now, right? She's not having to really pull on the end of the lead rope. Like even there, the rope is loose and she brings her attention back in. Oops, she's about to hit the end of it, and then she didn't. She self-corrected. She's tuning into me a little bit more and more often, voluntarily. I still would like to see her lengthen that neck a lot more. That physical part of it is important because, like I started off saying, her mind getting anxious makes every muscle in her body so freaking tight. And the tighter she gets muscularly, the more it feeds her anxiety. And so it's just been this horrible cycle that she's been stuck in because she gets anxious easily, which means she tightens up her body easily. And the tighter she gets, the more it fuels her anxiety. But her being able to work through it, finding her own way through that, she's starting to own that she does not have to be that way, that she can make different choices. And that's the power to me of unsupported work. Giving the horse freedom of choice, it does take longer. It takes a lot more patience. It takes a lot more repetition. The horses have to make a lot more errors before they figure out something better. But the changes that they discover for themselves tend to last, they tend to be more permanent because they discovered for themselves, right? So I have no idea her internal machinations for going, oh, I'm distracted, I don't like that feeling, let me change my focus. But she did figure it out, right? She may start to play more and more with a longer neck. And when she starts to realize that slowing down and lengthening her neck alleviates the tightness through her muscles, she may start to choose that more often, right? Because she certainly learned to reduce her own anxiety, which is a huge step in the right direction. That's what moved her from failing the exercise into getting a passable grade. I would say a C or a B. And the other thing that gives her an A+ on this exercise is when she starts focused, slow, efficient, calm, and doesn't lose it during the exercise. Or if she does lose it, it's very minimal, very mild. So not too exciting to do, not too exciting to watch, but I think critically important as a stage of development for Miss Rarely Wrong, because I think some horses that come out of the competitive world are either over-controlled and they learn to fight it or be scared of it, or they run people around. So there's either no boundaries or too many boundaries or restriction or micromanagement. And the horses can't quite figure out, what do I need to do for myself and what does my human do for me? But all that anxiety is also in the way of any authentic communication. If she's sort of blah, 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 distracted, talk to the hand, then there's no room for me to have a subtle conversation with her about her physical balance, because her mind is too busy just surviving, looking out for danger, looking out for trouble. And now that she can manage that a little better inside herself, there's a lot more space for us to actually have a conversation. So even there with the wind blowing a little and her turning away, she's straightening out the lunge line, but she's not really putting any pressure on it. And sometimes she doesn't even straighten out the lunge line before she corrects her own focus and kind of comes back into the circle. So I think we'll leave it there for the recording. And I'm just going to give her her hour, and then the next update we'll be working on something new.